A new update for Norland was released on October 10th, so today I'll be covering the important patch notes for you here without all that extra stuff. As always, I'll link the Steam announcement for the update down in the description if you want to read along with me. With that out of the way, let's discuss patch 41. First up this time is the long-awaited and highly requested developer mode. It can be easily enabled in the Steam properties for the game by right-clicking Norland, selecting properties from the drop-down menu, and typing -debug in the launch options box. Now when you are in the game, you can open the menu by pressing the Control and D keys. In this menu, you can do almost anything you can imagine to tweak the game to your liking. You can create new characters, set your maximum frames per second, and even use the battle simulator to experiment with the combat system. This has been a long overdue change, and should allow a much better experience for those who have played for a while and want to create a real sandbox experience that fits their playstyle. A common critique of the current game is being restricted to 60 FPS as well, so this is another great addition. The battle simulator will be a welcome addition for anyone who finds combat tricky. Group conspiracies have been added and function as a way for politicians with low loyalty to conspire against the king. For this to work, they need co-conspirators such as followers, puppets, or neighbors hostile to the king. They can then assassinate the king and make it look like an accident. Usurpers were finally added, with the usurper receiving a trait when they take the crown illegitimately. Lords in the former heir will hate the usurper, and the usurper will execute his enemies on the scaffolding. Leaders of other kingdoms will be pleased with the new ruler if they hated the old one, or the reverse of this if they liked the former king. Public policy is a new mechanic that replaces loyalists and fanatics by giving lords and the bishop their own followers across the population, instead of just with the army. In order to gain loyalists, you will need the king to acquire followers, instead of them just appearing randomly. This applies with fanatics for the bishop as well. Followers can be gained through military victory, or loyalty sermons. The relations displays have received a facelift. Now, on character screens you can sort by nearby, rulers, friends and enemies, as well as puppets, idols, and followers. You can also toggle the show interest option to show character interest in one another instead of relation. Unfortunately, there's no longer toggles for specific factions, which made it easier to find who you were looking for in my opinion. Hopefully they will return this in the future. As far as relation view from the map, it is mostly the same as before, but with exact values of relations between kings displayed instead of only being given icon identifiers. The icons are a little different as well, and cultures are no longer displayed under the city name, which I find makes it a bit nicer looking, but is deceptive. This is because when you scroll out, you can see an icon that indicates the culture. The problem is that this shows the king, but is actually the city culture, which was the one displayed with the text before. That means if you have a king rise who has a different culture to the city, you will think the king has a culture he doesn't actually have. To fix this problem, I think the icon display should be next to the city name to prevent any confusion. To the right of the city name but to the left of the banner might look the best. Next we have a favorite on the channel, which is more new buildings, which means new art as well. This time we get striking stone upgrades to both the hall and lord houses that improve comfort, much like the final stages of the residential houses. The library and temple got similar overhauls to be in line with these changes as well. The developer finally teases that the stone pit or quarry from the roadmap is next up and should arrive very soon. So that brings us to the end of the highlighted changes and onto the full changelog. I'll try to get through these quickly and only talk about the ones I think most players will want to hear about. A new faction symbol and 2 new background patterns for banners have been added. An annoying visual quirk that causes roofs to stay visible when selecting a character inside a building has been fixed, and these roofs will now be removed. Carrots are now the default field for new campaigns, and you will start with carrots instead of flour as the food to get you through the first few days. The thought from coordinating the emperor is now temporary, and the "we are doomed" negative thought will also disappear when the Inquisition is beaten. A character in the player's city who becomes a puppet of a ruler from another city will only start an uprising if the other ruler's relation with the player is at or below -15. A puppet of the bishop will demand the crown be given to the bishop instead of themselves. Ragged ones and bandits will now appear even sooner in a campaign. This is a bit disappointing. I have not seen anyone finding ragged ones to be a good addition, and having them appear earlier will impact new players especially. The AI will now request military aid less often when they don't need it. They won't request help if they have much more power than their enemy, with fortifications considered. They also won't request aid if their relation with the player is -25 or lower, unless they are allied or the player is their king. They will still always request aid if they are targeted by the unholy horde or the enemy's goal is to burn them to the ground. Recruiting a hostage into your faction now worsens relations with the character's former faction by -15. You can once again pay the population in gold from the start of the game. You can still choose to pay them in resources though. You can now request to become a vassal to an AI city. Deserting soldiers from the player's city will leave their equipment in the warehouse, but they will take their gold with them. There were also a number of smaller fixes, but they are pretty minimal, so I'm not going to go over all of them here. So that's going to be it for me this time. If you're a fan of Norland and want to stay up to date on all of the latest news, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I cover all of the patch notes, roadmaps, and any other communications from the developers that I find to be important or interesting. So as always, I thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.